The man I'm interviewing today does millions of dollars of transactions a year for his clients. Some people know him as a fixer, other people know him as a personal shopper. To many, he's just the guy for that. But I know him as my friend Josh, and in his own words, he is a luxury acquisition specialist, which means he will acquire anything for any of his clients that he can possibly get his hands on. And let me tell you, he is hyper focused on this deal. The reason I think you should listen to Josh today is because he is simply the best I've ever found or heard of at finding the niche luxury handcrafted quality products of this world, whether it's handmade jewelry in Florence or the same for hat making in Chicago. There is nobody in the world who can match his level of focused determination and pure need to find artisanal products.
Before sort of your business Monogram existed, before you had a single client, who were you before then? Because you've kind of had a decade or more of pure luxury focus and experience. What were you doing with your hands, your time, and what kind of pushed you towards this very specific niche?
That's a good question. I used to work for a company called the New Century Group, and I was the head buyer for them. It's funny. So it was my job to sell lost mail. I don't know if you'll realize, but so if you ship a package in the U.S. in particular, and it gets lost, the post office owns the thing that you shipped because either you paid for insurance or you signed a digital waiver. So they own the thing, and the Lost Mail Recovery Center is based in Atlanta, which is where I live. And you can go and you can buy pallets of lost mail. And when I was younger, I was hired by a company who specialized in purchasing Gaylords for lots of lost mail. And we had a big warehouse, and they would buy it by category. They'd dump it all out on the warehouse floor, and you'd look through it and find value. And we had things as varied as F-16 fighter jet parts, space shuttle parts, drill presses, turbochargers. It was a really varied lot of stuff. And you had to very quickly learn a lot about a lot. I didn't know what any of these things were. But your ability to perform and sell relied on quickly understanding an entirely new vertical pretty deeply, understanding who the buyers and sellers of that market were, figuring out who would pay you for the thing that you had, and trying to maximize revenue for the business. I did pretty well at it. I got promoted to head buyer for the company in 6 months, which took me to the freight division. So we started doing the same thing with lost and damaged freight, which same principle. UPS has a freight division, Southeastern Freight, FedEx Freight. Things get lost or damaged, they go to a gigantic auction house, and then you bid in live auction on lots. And you have to be able to see something and think of the value. So it taught me pretty quickly that nothing has value in life, right? If I can go to an auction and bid against you, and we have different value thresholds because I'm a reseller and you're an end user, we're bidding differently. I don't know. It does sort of demoralize you at a young age that nothing has value, and you can buy pretty much anything and sell anything. But it does teach you some skills. And so I did this for a couple of years, and then I went to university. And in that time, in 2008, the market crashed. And so I should back up just a minute. At university, I had no money. My net worth, my aggregate net worth is $20. That was for food and gas for the semester. Did not come from drops of money. And I always kind of had a passion for clothing. I was well dressed in high school. I had gotten good feedback on my style, so I kind of had that intuition, the eye, I guess you would say, without any formal training yet. And that allowed me to walk into a store and be I think that's nice, that has value. And in this case, I walked into a Macy's department store my freshman year, and there was a Hugo Boss shirt, which I don't advocate Hugo Boss at all anymore. But at the time, I was oh, I really want that polo shirt. And it was $14, and I really wanted this $14 polo shirt. But I told you my net worth was $20. So it was a large part of my net worth. It's well, that's not a wise investment. But there was it was 30 of them on the rack. They were all marked down from 85 to 14. And on the top of the rack was a sign, and it said, "Open a Macy's charge card today, get 15% off." And I was well, there's capitalization right there. So I opened the card. I immediately maxed out the card. I bought all 30 shirts. I brought them to my dorm room that weekend. I listed 20 I listed 29 shirts. I sold them all. I netted $400 and kept a free shirt. My net worth increased to $420. I had a free shirt. And I was like, well, this will work. So I started buying and selling clothing as my like main business in college. And I had a very, very kind roommate, Jared, if you're watching, thank you. We used our dorm room as a fulfillment center. So like our beds, our floors, the center console, the closets were all like warehouse space with a shipping station. And I was just like churning out merchandise on eBay. And it's conspicuous because I went to a really small school in Tennessee and I drove a Mini Cooper. So I drove in a Mini Cooper and I'd pull out like 30 bags of Neiman Marcus walking into my dorm room. People are like, what are you doing? Like, why do you have all these clothes? And I was like, well, listen, I sell clothes. It's my job. I've befriended all the managers of the stores and I know what their, KPIs are. I need, units per transaction, dollars per transaction. So if things go on sale, call me. I'll buy everything, right? And then I'll just resell it online. And so the managers would call me in big sales. Hey, there's 3 racks. Come get it. We'll hold it for you. They put it in the back. I'd walk in. And then there'd be a train of us carrying these bags in my car. I'd drive back to Tennessee. I'd list everything. And people started coming to me in school saying, hey, you have these clothes. I have a date tonight. Can I wear something from your inventory? I was like, well, yeah, sure. Like, here's a Tom Ford polo shirt. Just, tuck the tag in the back. Don't tell anybody. We'll sell it as new tomorrow. But if you get a stain on it, that shirt's $1,000. So don't get a stain on it or you owe me $1,000. So I was, outfitting my friends and like the sports teams for their dates. And then eventually interviews as we became upperclassmen. And in 2008, my best friend's dad lost his business. This was sort of my watershed that pivoted me into this career. Because I knew how to buy and sell stuff. So this guy was influential in my childhood because we'd go to his house for all the big parties. He was like the fun dad, right? HR stood for Hot Rod. That was his name. And he owned a paint store. It was a Benjamin Moore paint store. And everyone has a passion in life, and his passion was paint. He'd walk into a room, and it wouldn't be a white room to him. He'd be like, that's Arctic 2324 from 3 years ago. Like he knew color really well, and his biggest sell-through was new construction because people build new houses that paint the houses. And he was a trusted source in the Atlanta area because people knew that he knew and loved this category. So he was like the go-to. He was the guy, right? And 5'5", life of the party, hot rod, the paint guy. And when the market crashed and he lost his business, his wife called me and said, listen, we've lost everything. Like, we lost our life savings. We lost the business. HR needs to go get a job to make some money to keep the house. But he has paint clothes, right? Like, and we know nothing about him to get dressed for an interview. I know that you sell clothes. Could you please help us? And it's your best friend's dad. Like, of course you're going to help. Like, whatever it takes, you're going to help. Right. And we had basics. We had, blue button-down dress shirts and trousers and shoes. And he came over. Remember, he put on the first outfit and went to the bathroom to put it on. And he came over to my place, and he was just, lumbering through the door. And when he came out of the bathroom, Adam, he stood up in a way that was transformational. And I know that, they say, first impressions are important and clothing is important.
It's super cliche, like the clothing changes the person.
Yeah. But to see someone change so dramatically, so quickly was hugely impactful to me because I think that he had lost sight of the fact that he had value as a father and a husband and a man because his business, he was the provider, and his business crashed and he didn't see value in himself anymore. And being able to see himself as a man again in the world that could go out and provide, I think changed him, and that changed me to see that flip so quickly. And so it got me thinking about the people rather than the stuff that I sell. And it didn't happen, all in an instant. But over about 6 months, I began to think, is there a human application here? Because the auction taught me that things have no value, but clearly people have value. I can't give people value, right? That's slavery. But you got to help people see their value. And that's a pretty significant thing. Lots of careers do this. Education helps you see your value. That's why it's so important. The arts help you see your value in humanity. fashion is it's a little slice, but it can be really influential if you need that. And that's when I learned that image consulting was a career, which I think is maybe just a pivot on, a stylish or really fancy. But I discovered image consulting. I went and worked for one in South Carolina for a little while. I'd signed to do not compete in that market. So I learned the business of image consulting. And then I came back in 2011 to Atlanta, and I hung my own little shingle, and I started doing that part-time while I also worked retail to learn like the back end of the industry. And then it just kind of grew into the company when it was originally founded, was called With Josh, because all of my clients at the time, all my friends would joke, "Hey, are you with Josh? Like, have you gone to the thing with Josh?" And it just became like this like cliche that everyone wanted to be with Josh to go shopping or to buy something because he knew how to do it the best. And so the company was, withjosh.com, and everyone would call and ask for Josh. And it started with just clothing. And then I kind of quickly found that if I was going to do something, I had to be, obsessively the best at it. I'm not sure it's healthy, but it's who I am.
Sure. Yeah.
So I just started researching and reading a ton. So I went to school for communications, which gave me and I specialized in nonverbal. So the nonverbal comm side of it, I understood from my university degree, but putting that into practice with the adjectives of clothing became my pursuit to understand how that translated into fibers, textiles, construction, expression, visuals. And that was a learning process. I'm sure that I have in my wake some clients I didn't serve the best, but I guess you grow and you learn. And now I have a really loyal, grateful cadre of clients who believe in what we do and sometimes even share us with their closest friends. So yeah, that's how it went from buying stuff to helping people.
Okay. It's the selling of bulk is really interesting because for you, your wide breadth of knowledge kind of intersects really well with that then. And that's sort of the cool bit there that you went from a sort of bulk freight industry, which doesn't sound glamorous and luxurious and like clothing and all that, but yet it's incredibly important to then understanding how to look into other verticals as well. It's really cool. The thing that stuck out to me though, and it's something that I look into as well, is the value means nothing. And I think that's where most people get stuck. And it's why me personally, I moved away from talking about pricing in my content and all that, because people often look at the price and they're like, well, who would ever spend that? It's like, well, the person that it's valuable to. People have different meanings of value, and whatever that value is, they'll pay it or they won't pay it. Okay. So my thought then is, how does that inform your buying? So you think, and it's something I've called out before, is it needs to be the people before the clothing. Just like how you saw Hot Rod go from kind of being a beat down, bent back, shoulders clenched, to standing up straight again, realizing he still had value, because he never really lost his skills or his capabilities. He had just been beaten for the moment. He had lost a battle, but of course he still knew everything about paint. People still knew who he was. He just didn't have a buyer in that moment. And so when you look at not just like a luxury market, but your people, how do you then translate value for your clients if you're trying to think of them as people first, not just the money behind it? Do you just find the money totally irrelevant? I know you talk about your hourly rate versus trying to charge 50% of whatever the person is buying. Is that sort of an ethical thing for you? Is that you don't want to charge people just because? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly conscious of the money. I think there's a misconception that if you have lots of money, that you'll spend it freely. And I think that people have money. This is going to sound silly, but I'll explain. Rich people own money, right? Poor people own stuff. The stuff used to be money. They traded the money for the stuff. They no longer own the money. Not rich anymore. So owning money is what makes you wealthy. And people who want to maintain a wealthy lifestyle are strategic in their investments. Now, the scale changes. There the floor under which something becomes free to you does change. So in our lives, you and me, Adam, we might go out to eat and buy a hamburger for $10 and not even consider the cost, because to us that's free, right? Like, it's not actually free, but it's relatively free.
Or like, this is a $1.50. This is $1.50, but it's 150 versus 1.5 billion.
Right. So I have found that like the scale certainly changes. There's definitely a floor below which like I get carte blanche to do what I want. And for every client that's different. So for some clients, as long as the item is under $10,000 each, that's fine, right? I do always ask clients when I come into a new appointment with a new client, there's 3 ways to budget. You can budget on a per item basis. You can budget on a per vertical basis, meaning like if you get dressed for your board meetings, like I want to spend no more than X number of dollars on this, or my casual wardrobe is worth X to me. Or you can budget in aggregate. I want to spend no more than, $250 on clothes this year. So it's just, I ask them how they budget. And then I'm really allegiant to that budget. It's not that they're not adults, but they've trusted me to kind of watch out for their best interest, to be a fiduciary of sorts when it comes to like the acquisition of that luxury vertical. So I'm very aware of it, but I'm also aware of the difference between like cost and value. So I tell clients, I'm a human gateway drug. Just be aware. Like when you come work with me, very quickly you're going to lose sight of where you thought the value was, and I'm going to reposition you into where I think the value truly lies. I typically work in the gradient between ROI and best in class. I think that's the most interesting gradient for a client. There are products below which there is no return on investment for them. And I typically don't even look at those items. So like in my personal life, I don't help a lot of my friends get dressed because like that market segment does tend to be a little pricier. You have to value, denim enough to be able to spend, $300 a pair to get into the ROI floor. Like this is my knowledge set is ROI to best in class. But as long as you are okay with me putting value, and the way I typically say it is, when you buy any physical product, you're buying the raw materials, you're buying the labor, and you're buying the brand. And the order in which you value those 3 things defines the value prop of that physical item. So I always give the analogy of Gucci loafers because people, like, they know a Gucci loafer if they're out in fashion. Like, listen, I think Gucci loafers, when I last looked, are like $990 now. And some of them are like $1,250.
A grand.
Yeah. And to me, empirically looking at like the shoe construction, that shoe is probably worth about $250 in terms of like the quality of the leather, the hardware, the stitching, and the fabrication. You're paying a large premium to be part of the Gucci tribe. And that's fine. There are hordes of Patagucci finance bros who roam the streets of Manhattan, and that's part of the culture. So being part of the tribe has value. All I ask clients to do is consider, why are you buying the thing that you want? Let's just be thoughtful about why you're buying it. If the brand is a value add to you, if everyone in your office wears Ferragamo, then maybe you should as well to be part of the tribe to increase promotion chances. But if no one knows or cares, there are much better places we can flip that paradigm. We can invest in better raw materials, better construction, and then the brand at that point becomes 2 things. One is a certificate of quality, meaning if I buy from this brand, I know that it's of sufficient quality for me. And 2, it offers me after-purchase support and repeatability of purchase because I've done the work to find the brand. As I wear through these shoes, I can get more of them without having to do the work again because efficiency matters in my life, right? So I'm trying to understand the client's ethos and why they buy something, and then make sure I cater to that specific set of needs. So, in the Venn diagram of buying things, you have the product is on one side, and the person is on the other side. And the person, there's 1,000 slip-on loafers in the world. And the person has a finite set of needs. They have a cadence of their life, and then they might have a job or not. They might have, charity or board work or travel, whatever. I'm looking to understand what's their cadence of life and what's the time, place, occasion, which is encompassing of, audience, goals. Is the audience new to you? Do you care for your presenting yourself and trying to manage expectations? All the things that go into that. If we can subdivide that into verticals, you might have 4 or 5 verticals in your life, usually at most. Most people have like 4 or 5. If you look at the cross section between your verticals, available products, relative that are organized relative to your value structure, the overlap is usually very few products, 3 or 4 at most. And so then my job is, one, to be architect, to understand what's available and what you need. Here's the overlap. And then to go and acquire those shoes, and also to filter, because just because some shoes are available and they meet your needs doesn't mean that they're good. Like, this is the taste part, right? Like understanding what one should buy versus what one can buy. And so I try and be responsive to that as well, because just because it's for sale doesn't mean that you should buy it. I was talking to Matt Rannick last week. He was telling me this story. He was in a Polo outlet, and he was in line, and there was this lady who had bought, she had a handful of ties, presumably for her husband. And she had picked out, because she was like buying ties for work. And he looked at her, and he said the line was very long, but she was in front of her, she had these ties. And he said they were the ugliest ties he had ever seen. And there were good ties on the rack, and she had picked out the ugliest ties. He's like, ma'am, but I'm just curious, who are these ties for? And she explained it was her husband and for work, and that she liked them in color. And he's very good at being very polite about potentially rude things. It would pivot her to saying, ma'am, he will wear these ties because he loves you. He does not want to wear these ties, but there are great ties over there. Can I help you find some really good ties? She was like, oh, I had never thought about it before. Yeah, I would love to help. So he left this very long line very nicely to help this lady find better ties. Because just because they were of good quality, when they met his needs, taste was the missing component there, and she didn't have taste. So
It's like taste is what knowing not to buy instead of what to buy.
very often, yes.
And who better than to run into Matt Haranek at a Polo store and have him help you buy your stuff? Yeah, that's actually kind of funny. Just like bumping around, and I ran into a lot of that in retail. I got very close to chewing a customer out once, in a younger version of me, and it was the guy who always needed his wife's permission to dress himself, which is sort of like the flip of that, where he has so little confidence in his own image to then go and try and bring value to his own image. It's almost like he needs the outside out validation. I'm curious with that, how often do your clients tend to be, because they're at a certain level of wealth and they need to have a certain amount of confidence, are they the more decisive type typically, or are you consistently trying to educate your clients and sort of bring them sort of up to, I guess, your standard, or show them what your standard is?
Again, a great question. I've learned to be very clear about this with clients when I have an intake process. I ask them if they want to experience the steps along the way, or if they want to go just 0 to 100 and trust us that we know what's best. And we get clients all across the spectrum, and the answers are in no way related to their net worth. Some people want to know. A lot of people say, you know what, I don't care, but they always have an idea of what's good in their head. So I'm trying to qualify what they think is good so I can bring a relevant subset of product that both meets their needs and also pushes them to be, better. But you have to be clear with clients to ask them where they want to self-select in the marketplace and how much they want to trust you in the outsourcing of that. You would think, like, in general, our clients are people who stay in their lane. They do something in life really well, and they're using us for a reason. So they're used to outsourcing, but you still have to build trust. So often people do want to be involved in the decision making, at least in the first couple of presentations. I mean, very often clients reach a point where they say, you just do it. I trust you. You've clearly done this more than me, and this is your specialty. You can do this for me. But it takes some time.
Okay. Interesting. Because In my experience, and it's not the decade or more that you have in sort of this more specific niche, the clients I've run into are super decisive and they're very willing to just delegate the decision making, which, like you said, once they trust you is certainly a thing. When I went from sort of a $10,000 a week salesperson to a $30,000 a week salesperson, it was not because I was talking more, but it was actually because I was just giving a client an option and saying, this is it. Like, just do this and it'll be helpful to you. And so it's interesting in my head here to think about that. I need to get through more of this. That kind of has me thinking, I see your work a little bit as the JLC of this space, whereas JLC calls themselves the watchmaker's watchmaker. They're not necessarily the loudest in the space, but they are some of the most precise. And so with you, I see a lot of sort of people in the industry following you, following your work, seeing what you put out, and then looking at those brands after you bring light to them. Where is the cause behind the effect for that for you? Is it a system you built to find these smaller places? Is it the people you know? And then when you actually go and price everything and put it all together, you have a more unique way of doing that as well, where a lot of people find the one thing for a client and they say job over, whereas you tend to find 10 options, put them into a spreadsheet, compare price, compare age, compare everything else. I suppose the short question there is, where is the cause behind everything else that kind of follows what you do? Is it a client saying, I want the fast and easy option? Is it a client asking, I want all the options, and I want you to distill me to the top three, and I want to see the work behind it so I know that you're doing it? Or are you truly taking the initiative beyond what other personal shoppers tend to do?
Okay.
I'm trying to figure which part to answer first. I think I am obsessive about perfection,
Well,
and I love to be trusted. And I think that I put a larger onus on myself for what success looks like than a client ever has. And because of that, I feel insufficient to meet the needs of my clients unless I have a firm understanding of the vertical and any affecting verticals. So when I go acquire for a client, I need to understand to give them the very best options. I think that I certainly have committed far more resources than maybe any other personal shopper that exists to like deep diving into all of these things. I spend my own money to fly over the world, to go to factories, to learn the construction processes of tailoring and shirts and knitwear. And then I have my own literal library at home about textiles that I'm always trying to learn more and better. And I pull up and read academic and scholarly papers about, research into, the AFD of vicuña, because I want to understand what it looks like for, buying a rare fiber and if that actually helps the client. So I'm just obsessive about it. And I have found a way to make a business that feeds my obsession. I'd probably be obsessed about anything that I do. I just happen to be in an industry where we reward obsession. The problem for me is that the word stylist, I have a problem for you as well.
yes.
Stylist is such a vague word. In the same way that like photographer is a vague word. You might own a camera. Owning a camera does not make you a photographer. Owning a piano does not make you a pianist, right? You have to know how to use that tool exceptionally well to claim that term, I think. And the oversaturation of stylist has made it difficult to even be found in the industry. I mentioned earlier that like I don't even know how to describe what I do anymore, because when people find us, they usually do something like, stylist near me search, because they know the word stylist, or maybe, personal shopper. No one thinks to Google luxury acquisition specialist near me, right?
Yeah. If you look at the Google search volume, you'd be like, Zero.
Zero.
It would be not there.
Right. So I think what happens, to answer the first part of your question, is people find us via wardrobe, and they maybe see our OCD approach to finding the best on their behalf, and they feel taken care of. They know we have their best interest at heart, and because we give them such great options that they haven't heard of, and then really care about explaining it if they want to know, they usually ask, "Oh, hey, I need to get a gift for my spouse." And we give them an exceptional list that's highly curated, but easy to understand, articulated for their limited time in life to read through lists. So anyway, maybe 3 bullet pointed things with pricing availability, and you can just respond literally to my email and say, yes, number 1, hit send, and then it just happens, right? So understanding how the client's life works, and then also understanding how the retail world works, and cultivating the relationships that allow me access to the things that they want that aren't, push click on the internet, makes us valuable. And then that just kind of grows. And so that people want to know, well, hey, you must travel a lot. How do you do it? Because you do everything else to perfection. You probably also travel to perfection. Can you book my trips for me? Can you buy my wine for me? Can you get my jewelry? And suddenly I'm, off getting certifications and all these things so that I can, because I have to, right? Like I can't do your thing without fully understanding the vertical. So I spend lots of time and money in research and certifications to understand how to do it better.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. The lack of definition and trying to meet clients where they are and then educating them to what's possible is sort of the biggest hurdle in a lot of times. Because like you said, a lot of people are like, well, you're just like a personal stylist or shopper, aren't you? And it's the whole just part of it. And they don't understand just how far that thing can go.
Yes. Yeah, personal shoppers live in bubbles, right? You have the ones that are in a store, and they are literally limited to the inventory on that shelf, or maybe orderable at other stores on those shelves. But you work with a stylist at Neiman's, you have to buy things that Neiman Marcus sells. Then there are outside stylists who can shop at many stores, but most stylists will only shop stores where they get commission. So they're again limited. And then you have some who do charge a project or an hourly fee, but they're still just people who have heard, oh, this is a good brand, and this might look good on you. So I think and I hope they're the first that AI will put out of business, because the concept of styling, I mean, literally, it's the idea of taking a body, mixing and matching physical products onto that body in shapes and colors, and then giving you what to buy. That is the most outsourceable AI thing I've ever heard. They're going to go away, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But beyond that, understanding their life, and then having relationships and creating spreadsheets to compare apples to oranges when it comes to luxury acquisition is an entirely different thing. And then competing on execution to make sure that not only did we understand your life, find the right thing, we also bring it to you in a luxurious way where it's pre-steamed and buttoned correctly, and there are racks that look beautiful, and they just arrive in your living room. You can walk in and in 20 minutes see the entire world right there, everything that's your size, your style, from every brand imaginable, curated down to the things that are actually good for you. And you can say yes, yes, no, and leave the room. I don't know anyone else does that.
Yeah, it's a very different level. In my mind, you do a very similar thing to what I do, but for shopping, is where I kind of, similar to you, I come in, here's a wardrobe I think would be good for you that I should make for you. Yes, no, maybe so. Bing, 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 bing. Here's bill. Do you want me to send it to you, your accountant, or your assistant? Yes, no, okay, bye. And you're gone 15 minutes later. Similar to you, where you just show up and you're like, here's everything. What do we think? And it's super simple and easy. And that's what I found, that especially high net worth people who value their time, they just want to have as little fatigue as possible in their decision making.
I think you understand, like me, for every, it might take you an hour of back end work to save them a minute of client work, but they care about all the minutes. So you put in all the hours to save them all the minutes.
Correct. I put that on my website too, where it's 200 hours plus of work into 20 or more pieces between me, other people putting the garment together, travel, etc., for one client. And I think people often struggle to understand that magnitudes, that there's levels to literally everything, which is cool.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, I mean, you've covered a lot of the questions there because I was almost going to talk into the point of there's a whole class of personal stylists who are just commissioned salespeople with an Instagram page. And they have, 2,000 followers. They think they're the best in the world at what they do, but they communicate very poorly. They don't care truly, and they just want the money. And they've really only become the top salesperson by being like a hustler, which is interesting.
I mean, I'll say I've only recently entered like this maybe 1,000 years old. Like the internet. I've had a website for a while, but like we don't really update it. I've only recently started social media, and I'm starting to get people who call us, brands in particular, who will say, we don't work with personal stylists because they're terrible, but you're very different. Like your level of understanding and your approach to this is unique. Those brands are as varied as like Atolini to like Mark Pomerantz. I had a call with their PR guy last week. And he was like, you don't sound like any stylists I've ever talked to. Like you understand more and you dive a lot deeper. You actually care about this stuff, which it's flattering when brands who care a lot about their customers find that you might be a good match for them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, having a brand that cares, like this company that I'm wearing right now, their polo, they reached out to me. They're like, hey, we want you to be the first influencer we work with. We're a small company, but we really appreciate that you're just you. You're not trying to just straight sell literally every post. And I think there's a good balance to that. And even though that you're new to the social media side, like you said, you do a really, really good job of if you sit and watch the video, you'll come away with something. And so that's just, it's so fun to watch. I don't remember where I saw your first content, but sort of digging into it, I was like, this is cool. Because like you said, it's different.
Yeah, I'm not great at the hooks yet. You have to you have to care. I've noticed. It's funny just between you and me. You have your fall off metrics on Instagram. What's that called?
You have your retention graph.
Yes. If it starts with my face, there's an immediate decline.
That's
That's just we don't like your face,
That's what
God.
they're
That's
saying.
just
Get this ugly white kid off of my But if I point to a thing first and say something interesting, like it stops it. And my face shows it still declines, but not as much. I was made to be a very unassuming person, so people have to, I guess, actually like care about what I'm saying to find the content interesting. So we're just kind of still struggling to find our footing on social because we're looking for a very unique subset of person who cares about having the very best of something, and is happy to outsource that to an obsessive person who cares about them and the product just beyond what is necessary.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And it's incredibly tough. Like, I have a 30,000 person audience, but even of those 30,000, you maybe get one or two people who actually go and then reach out to you. And then it's a question of whether or not they actually want to work with you. Because the question I wanted to ask you was, I recently, and you may have seen this story or whatnot, and other people have seen it, had a person who wanted to spend, let's say, $200,000 with me. They were like, I want to spend $250,000. I go to Jackson Hole. I have an East Coast closet. I have a West Coast closet. And they're like, how do we get this done? It's like, well, here's everything. I stay up on Christmas Eve, send them the document. I'm like, this is what I'd make for you. This is how much it costs. Here's why. Here's document to pay for it. And then 3 months later, they still haven't committed. And they go, well, maybe I only need 100,000. Maybe I need 50,000. Oh, and it's like the entire time they have a public accessible where they're known to be a scammer, insurance fraud, just straight up theft in general. It's wild. It's sort of, I hate to use the terminology, but new money versus old money, where people with new money are trying to flex and show that they have it versus like old money, quote unquote, is more of a mindset of buying things because they are simply good. Do you have a filter when you ask clients and say, you're not a fit for us because you're going for these goals versus you are a fit for us because of these goals? What are you not looking for in a client would be, I think, the best way to ask that question.
I think I look for people who value the time savings first and foremost, because, like, listen, there are things that I will not buy for clients. Like anything that falls out of my spectrum of understanding and value threshold, that's just not good for you. I'm not. Like, you can hire a TaskRabbit. Like if you're cold, I think Patagonia's down the street. Go buy a coat. Like you don't need me for that. I'm not a value add there. So if you come to us and you don't think that a t-shirt should be at least, $85 or $100, I don't know how to help you, because I'm going to go look for, t-shirts that cost less than that somehow. And in so doing, the time that I cost is going to make that t-shirt jump from 50 to 650 pretty quickly, right? So I need you to align with me on a value schema or structure. That's a good litmus test, kind of first and foremost, that we are talking the same language. You might not have the full vocabulary, but we value things similarly. And also, you need to understand that perfection costs a lot. It takes a long time. The more simple something seems, the longer it probably took to execute. Because to simplify is the hardest thing to do. That one of the best styles I've ever heard said, the blood, sweat, and tears happen in the fitting room. Knowing what not to buy is way harder than styling down the road. So the limiting factor that even I go through, if I found the best for you, okay, now there are 3 bests. You don't have time for that, right? It takes a minute to try on a shirt. I don't have 20 minutes of shirts to show you. You need 10 minutes of shirts. Which 10 of the best in the world shirts do I cut to give you the perfect presentation? So I think that valuing the product and valuing the time is probably the initial litmus test. If you don't find value in expert opinions and the time savings of those opinions, I can't really help you.
Yeah.
Which is why I believe in radical transparency on social. Like, I don't try and gatekeep any of the things that I show, because my ideal client, I could literally preload a shopping cart for them and send it to them, and they still wouldn't click buy it now. They'd be like, that looks great. You click the button, right? They're looking to totally outsource the experience. It's just not what they do. So I can share every aspect of everything that I do, and it helps us actually limit the number of incoming calls that we get, because if you're going to do it for yourself at any level, you're not a client for us.
Correct. Yeah, I've run into that as well, where people are like, well, I like shopping. And I'm like, great. I like shopping too. I'm not for you. Don't touch what I do, because it just won't be a value add. I think a curious thought kind of with that is, okay, what part of you did you have to leave behind to become who you are now, either in the luxury world, personal shopping, sort of trying to serve clients like you do? What had to sort of die to become the Josh of today?
You can't inflict your values on others. My first boss in retail was just an exceptional human. He was just a very kind person, which was lucky, and a great salesperson, but never one who wanted to get wrong to people. He just wanted to help them feel their best, honestly. And when you see someone over years really just care, you begin to trust that person. And he said, you always shop with the client's wallet, not your own. Meaning, just value what they value. It might be expensive to you or cheap to you. Don't bring your value structure to the client's needs. Always seek to understand what they value and where they're going to use it, and then help them find the best thing. Basically, all I do is take the place of, if you had the time and knowledge to shop for yourself, this is what you would end up with. It's not that this is Josh's best thing. This is the best thing Adam would have found if Adam had had the time to go and shop for himself.
Interesting. It almost, because I don't think of it that way, but I think that might be the correct way. Because in my mind, I think of it as, here's the best thing that I can find for this client that makes sense for their lifestyle. Not, here's what the client would have found if they put as much time as they possibly could into it. And I think it sounds similar, but there's a nuance to that. I think that's, I might
Be kind of digging into that more.
Certainly I have more experience, access, and relevance than they do. But I'm kind of presupposing that if they, in their career, had spent the time that I had spent for them, this is where they would have ended up. It stopped me. A lot of stylists, their products, their client outcomes tend to look like mini-me's, little, like they use a stamp and everyone looks the same.
Yes.
And I hate that. Like, that's not what a good stylist is supposed to do, because you've not taken into account the client's needs, verticals, use cases, all things, right? So it could be that the very best jacket for this person is from brand A, because I know, Joshua knows that, it's made in this factory from this cloth. This is the best. If they'd done all the research, they would have found it here. Yeah, but they don't like the style. That's not their thing. So the nuance there, I think, is simply in that you're taking into account a bit of personal taste, rather than the objective aspect of construction and labor and materials and branding and all that stuff.
Yes. I remember pointing that out a while ago in a piece of content, teaching people, how do you build a wardrobe if your budget's unlimited? And one of those things is find someone who is specialized in helping people just like you, meaning find someone who works with high net worth individuals. They don't have the same limitations, and they're good enough to understand that they are not trying to build copies. They're trying to build individuals, and those individuals already have a vision of who they are. You just need to put clothing on them. Another way, and you may or may not agree with this, I made a somewhat annoying point to some of my friends where you need to stop dressing in costumes, where a lot of people want to look like a cowboy, or they want to look like Ralph Lauren, or they want to copy Tom Ford or Yves Saint Laurent or whatever. And it's in copying that you look almost like a clown, because it's cosplay. It's not authentic. And I think a lot of people kind of get hurt by that, but that's because it's easy to copy things versus being authentic and real and human.
Yeah, I might push back on that a little bit, because I think copying helps you find your footing. Like if you're a writer, you want to read a lot of the best writing, and then your initial writing will in some ways pay homage to those writers. It's the same reason that ChatGPT annoyingly used a lot of M dashes for lots of updates, is because it was consuming the best of writing, and a lot of the best writers used M dashes. So when it wrote for you, it also used those. Annoyingly, it became a very quick earmark of you using AI to write for you.
This AI uses it incorrectly as well.
So I refuse to give up my M dashes, because I've always used them, and I love M dashes. ChatGPT will move on, we'll forget, hopefully. I think that copying helps sometimes. It helps you find what works for you, because personal style is a journey. You and I try and help people speed up that journey, or teleport as far as possible, right, while maintaining authenticity inside of that. That's a little bit of what I'm trying to get at when I'm saying if they had chopped for themselves, where they would have ended up. And sometimes I think that it's called for, especially in travel, or when you don't control the situation. Like I had some clients go to Sri Lanka for 3 weeks. This was like end of last year.
And you're trying to get the shorts to them?
Different. That was 2 weeks ago, and that was
Different Sri Lanka.
Yeah, a different island. So they had to go to some religious event in Sri Lanka. Now they're white Westerners, but they're going to religious events in Sri Lanka, and they wanted to look appropriate in the environment, which meant that I had to partner with some Indian tailors to give them the best version of the Indian expression of that thing. Now, yes, I could give them the best, Italian version, which climate-wise would have worked just fine, fabric, weight, but there's a different understanding of how those things should be used culturally and environmentally. And so I'm looking to partner with the best understanding of that in that locale to give them that unique access. Of course, they get that, unique access, the best fit, the best garment. So just try to contextualize the information for them. It, on the nose, might feel like cosplay, but when you arrive in the environment to the locals, the people who were there actually felt like my clients cared about them tremendously, because they went to the effort, expense, time of researching their heritage, their customs, and then respecting it enough to dress accordingly.
Yep.
It was a respect issue. Yeah. So, maybe don't dress like a cowboy in Manhattan, right? Sure. But there's probably times and places to I understand what you're trying to say, that costume feels inauthentic. And if you abstract it to the right place, there is a hint of authenticity to it. So it can help in the personal journey. I think that, just buying a bunch of turquoise because you like it is not the right move. But there can be utility in that dressing outside of yourself in an attempt to describe your personal style or be respectful of their cultures.
Okay. I think that example is a good sense of nuance there. I wouldn't have thought of it that way, where if you go somewhere completely new, like there's no way you'll ever wear the things enough to really get a unique version of it to your own self. So I think that does make sense. As a closing thought, if you were to have Monogram go away to zero, no nothing, you don't have any connections, you don't have any clients, but you still have the knowledge, the taste, and all of that, but you don't even have a vendor or a reputation, what's the first thing you do? So you still have the knowledge of what you want, you still have the taste, and you still have the ability to fulfill, but you don't necessarily have the connections to rebuild yet.
Am I still trying to do this thing?
Sorry?
Am I still trying to have this particular business?
Yeah, sure. So, or maybe you go to a different business model, but you still have the same knowledge and everything. Like, what's the either to pivot or what's the first steps to rebuilding? Okay.
It's a good question.
Okay.
I know. I think you need to build your network first. So I'd probably go get back into sales. And like you, when I am in a sales environment, I quickly rise to the number one salesperson because it's just not hard. I'm not trying to convince you need something. I'm trying to help you understand this is the best option for you. If you don't want it, fine. Like, there's no pressure. I don't care at all. You buy what you want. Don't give a fuck. So I think I would go get into some version of luxury sales to build a network. I go sell planes or boats or suits or something where I can build an environment again of people who trust me to repivot back to being my own very boss.
Okay. Is it the being your own boss, the important part there, where you can control the outcomes better and control the experience for your client and get benefit from that as well? Whereas like in a larger company, everything you do is for someone who's not you.
I think that my business owner folks will understand this. Like, I am a horrible employee. Like, I'm just not a good employee. Like, I just don't function like employees function. I care far too much about everything to be an employee. Employees bear no responsibility for the success of the business, and that just shows in micro ways that's hard to put into like words. But also, like you said, controlling the experience and the environment and not being product limited by the things the company happens to sell that I'm working for. Because a lot of times the best things for the client aren't. I used to manage an Allen Edmonds shoe store years ago, and like I was the highest commissioned person in the entire company in the U.S. And I'd have clients come in and be like, "This is not the right for what you need. This shoe is not good for you. There's a brand called," I'd tell them the brand and the product. Go buy it from them. It's much. It'll serve you much better. I lost the sale, but I gained tremendous respect from those individuals. Yeah, trust. And I think that what generally happened is, they may have left from that one particular sale, but they would buy a lot of other things from me and then send their business partners and their friends, and business amplified because I wasn't so concerned about cashing out on one single sale.
Yeah. I ran into that as well, where a lot of people where I worked were super concerned about their commission. They're really concerned about getting the sale that day versus just serving. Like, if you show the client the best option, even if they don't know what the price is, they typically will buy the thing because they recognize that it is valuable. They don't necessarily know why, but they are attracted to it because it is just the best thing.
I also lost some sales. I'm sure you did too, because, and so for people who are watching that don't know, in a commission environment, you usually have ups. So people that walking here on a rotation of who gets the next client through the door. And I would give up ups to colleagues who like needed a sale because I also needed their help if a big client came in, restocking, merchandising. So I'm trying to buy loyalty from those around me so that when I need the assistance for the right customer, I have that network to truly execute. So like this is this bears explanation, but I always tell clients in the order of things that I care about, you're last. So there's 3 things I care about. There's my team, which comes first. Because without a team around me, my direct employees, I don't have a business. I cannot serve you. It can't be just me. So I take care of them first. I take care of my vendors second. What I mean by that is, there are probably 3 guys in the world make the best shoes. 3 best shoemakers in the world.
Yeah.
If I allow a client to piss off one of those vendors, now of the 3, I have access to 2. And that hurts every other downstream client. So I take care of it, because a lot of clients have unreasonable expectations for me and the vendors. And my ability to say no to the client protects the artists from not being able to perform and then losing access. And I care about access. So taking care of my employees first and my vendors second, I take care of the client third. But they are the downstream beneficiary of both of those 2 things. And I need to be able to help the clients to the best of my ability. So not allowing a client to lose me a vendor or an employee means I take care of the client the best. But the client is third in that process.
Okay. I think that makes sense. It reminds me of the Navy's philosophy of when you're going to save things, you have to save the ship first, literally everything else after that. Because without a ship, you have nothing, like literally nothing.
That makes sense.
Okay. I mean, we're coming to the end of our time here. Is there a question that was unasked that you think more people should know about either the personal shopping, the luxury industry, etc.?
No, but I have a question for you. You described this as the JLC, and that's really interesting. I am curious, how do I get to be perceived as like the George Daniels of this, right? Like the JLC is not particularly upmarket. They're the watchmaker, yes, and they offer tremendous value for money, but they're not necessarily seen as like a prestigious brand. They're a good value brand and makes nice things, and they have some accessibility, which is nice. They're not like the best. Whereas you have a George Daniels or Rex Aprexepi, Roger W. Smith, Bergeron, F.P. Jordan. What do you think is keeping my perception here versus here?
I think some of that is, that's, in my opinion, as someone who's young to the industry, the hardest thing to do is to get the right people to buy from you, who then have the public image to push the brand image further.
Fair.
So, and I struggle with this as well, as long as I was with like hundreds of luxury people who are at like the peak of their game, but small, have this struggle where you need to have a certain amount of celebrities work with you in order to get to that point, I believe. Because if I remember correctly, like FP Jorn, I think they're Mr. Wonderful. They have all these other big people like Hodinkee and all the other Watch World, Teddy, everyone, etc., and all the other brands you named. Some way, somehow, they were able to work themselves into the celebrity network or the royalty networks or these places where they can claim some level of connection to a brand larger than themselves so that they can then springboard their own personal brands. Kind of like how Tiffany Diamonds, like Tiffany hasn't done anything truly significant, in my opinion, since like Breakfast at Tiffany's and using the Tiffany Diamonds in that and Audrey Hepburn and all that. And it's like, when's the last time Tiffany really did something super innovative in the industry? I don't know, but they still have such a powerful brand image as part of LVMH and all that as well. It's like the marketing engine. It seems to me that some of these niche, top of the game, truly astounding makers, there's probably 10 of them in the world, right? But those 10 are in the right place geographically and happen to run into the right people because of that geography to then springboard their branding. And I struggle with that a lot being in Minnesota, and I'm sure you struggle with it a little bit being in Atlanta, trying to find the right way to get in front of enough eyeballs to get that there is really, really tough.
I think you're exactly right. Being in Atlanta is a geographical barrier. Because I have vendors in this sector who are friends that have springboarded to international success because by virtue of being in the right social circles in New York, they get publications and celebrities that do solidify their excellence, which is Commercial success divorced from critical success.
Correct. Yeah, there's always a huge difference between the Rotten Tomatoes consumer and the Rotten Tomatoes critic. And if you can somehow max out both of those, I think that's the ideal in a lot of cases. But that's really, really tricky to do.
Yeah, it's like, how can I be known, not in every house, but in the right houses?
Yes. Yeah. It's a hard thing because like you and me both, we both struggle with hooking the right person in videos, hooking the right person in general, reaching out to them, and then not scaring them off by trying to explain what we do and how we help them in a way that isn't just confrontational or sales heavy or like whatever. Because we are trying to like truly help people, but the way you communicate that is incredibly tough.
How's your factory stuff going? You'd mentioned that you were having some difficulties.
It's continuous. If I'm being honest, some of it is my fault, right? Not understanding the Italian culture, not understanding how to communicate what expectations they want. There's a lot of miscommunications or just lack of communication from them as well with what their expectations were that they kind of assumed I knew. Things like what days they took off, what their communication schedule is like, what they expect to be paid, because there's inconsistencies there as well where they're like,
Yeah.
like we want to be paid up front, but like last month you waited until you sent the goods to get paid, like what's up? And so there's things there as well. It's a tricky game. The hard part for me is I love the quality and I like the goods and I've been to the factory and seen everything and all that. And they're capable of making really great stuff. But it's the operations that Italians are known for being weak at. And it's almost part of the business culture where they're like, we are unplanned on purpose because then we are allowed to be more flexible. And it's like, well, I think that's just a cop out. I think that's pure laziness, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the trade-offs for the Italian aesthetic.
Correct. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you have that sort of laissez-faire, relaxed aesthetic, but you're also some of the hardest people in the world to work with as any other country in the Western world.
Yeah. You know, if I didn't have so much schizophrenia in what I love, I would be in your version of the business because I do absolutely love suiting and tailoring all those things. I love too many things to be able to specialize in all of them. So I have to just basically satiate my desires via my client's spend. Like go find the best suit and buy it, and then the best wine and buy it, and the best watch and buy it.
Yep. You have a hedonic need to find all the things.
Do.
I mean, the reason I do what I do, and I think it'd be fun to do what you do, and ideally, like if the business were to be large enough, I just have a couple of people within the business to do your job. But for me, I highly, highly value focus. And that's why I choose to do just the clothing. Because if I start doing all the other things, then I can't. And like, if people don't know, if I have a client who wants to buy something from me, like my plan is I just go to Josh. I'm like, Josh, can you find the thing? Because I'm not good at that like you are. Right. And like, that's sort of the way I go about things where like, if a client needs a thing, I'm like, sure, I can go find it for you. And then the go find it for you is like, I go to Josh and like, Josh, find this thing for me. Because that's not what I do. It's what Josh does. And I do clothing and that's what I try to stay in. I can source silks and things like that because it's so adjacent to the clothing. But the focus really has to be just the clothes for me. And that's why I prefer to specialize in.
Yeah, people back up us all the time. And we don't even care. Like people will never use our name. And like they just seem very competent suddenly in this whole new vertical because they just asked us the right questions.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, I think people often struggle to say no to a buck. And I mean, it's really, really hard to, obviously, because like, okay, it needs money. But I think for me, it's saying no to the dollar that can sometimes help a lot.
Yeah. It helps you specialize for sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation today with Josh. I massively respect him as a buyer, and I hope you do now as well, and understand a little bit more about value, luxury, and how pricing works. And if you enjoyed this conversation, let me know, because I would love to bring on more people within the luxury industry and the menswear industry to talk about their story and what they do really, really well. And remember, what I do and what other people in my industry do is not for everyone, but I hope that we create value for the few who care.